Part 24. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 231. As soon as the two big guns exuding ferocious aura appeared, the two Rajas no longer bothered to cross their chests to protect themselves. They took 3 steps at a time and ran back to Luodu, each holding a big gun. Google search reading. Oh, this guy is so heavy. After all, they are weighing more than 10 kilograms, which is heavier than the HK-21 with a drum. What is this? Is it the legendary large-caliber sniper rifle? The ones ROGs use most are rifles similar to the G3 that use 762 NATO standard bullets. There are automatic, semi-automatic, and even bolt-action types. Modern bolt-action rifles, in addition to civilian shotguns, are mostly high-precision sniper rifles used in the military field. So they are not unfamiliar with this concept. Hey, it's a large-caliber battle rifle, or automatic rifle. It's specially given to you for G3, Ruger said with a smile. Seeing the two people's eyes wide open, he quickly added, "These two are experimental products, and I only have these two here. I originally planned to find a monster lair to test their actual effects. It just so happens that you guys are here, so I can lend it to you to fight monsters on the front line. I've also prepared ammunition for you. Don't worry about using it. I'll make sure you have enough to make you vomit blood. Also, these two guns are very expensive. They are twice as expensive as the HK-417 owned by your lady Sarah. Be careful with them. Remember to tell me your experience when you use it later. What parts are awkward to use, what parts are completely unbearable, etc. Whether your other sisters can change their costumes in the future depends on this experiment between you two." Listening to his ramblings, the two of them didn't even look at him. They just fiddled with the rifles in their hands with eyes full of stars. But soon, the two of them reacted and looked at Lugger at the same time and shouted, "Borrow it? You mean, this thing is lent to us? Can you buy it?" When Luodu heard this, he realized that these two little guys had a strong emotional background. Now let it be lent to them. After it is finalized, Lugger will definitely discuss with Sarah how to put this thing into the regular arms business. Until then, the two can always get the gun from Sarah for free. The account belongs to the ROG army itself. These weapons are considered the property of the army and are issued to the ROG soldiers for use. The ownership belongs to the troops, and the soldiers have the right to use it. It's just a question of one day earlier and one day later. But according to what the two little guys are saying now, they want to use their own private money to buy 2 rifles. This is spending your own money. And Lugger made it clear that this thing was very expensive, but the two still planned to buy it themselves. It can only be said that Lugger underestimated the financial resources of these elite Lugger warriors. Since they wanted to buy it, Lugger certainly wouldn't explicitly stop them. However, he still casually quoted a price that he considered to be a sky-high price, 3 ordinary grade gems. The price of ordinary level gems in the Lugger system is 160 points. However, because Tia has set the standard with actual actions, Lugger now calculates it as 1 ordinary level gem equals 80 points. 3 ordinary gems, that's 240 points. For an individual weapon, it is definitely a sky-high price. However, after the two ROGs heard the price, although they both took a breath, they still dug around and took out the corresponding gems from their packages. Seeing that they seemed to have spent all the dowry money that had been held for who knows how many years, Luodu felt even more sorry. He didn't really want to sell it to them, he just wanted them to give up the price. This price is the fair price he plans to offer Sarah in the future. If calculated according to Tia's equivalent purchasing power standard, it is really not a scam. But he couldn't bear to let the two little girls pay for it themselves. So before the two men called Gem over, he hurriedly pointed to the shooting range and said, "Don't be anxious, try the gun first. If it really doesn't work smoothly, I can't trick you, can I? The two women thought it right and immediately moved to the shooting range. Then 10 seconds later, the two women ran back jumping up and down, changed their previous hesitation, and firmly gave Lugger all the gems in their hands. This. We want this gun, the two women said in unison. Alas, why bother? Although Luge complained in his heart that the two of them were not scheming, he was also quite proud that the weapon he designed was so loved by the two Luge girls. So when the ammunition was provided to the two women, they were given 10 magazines each, plus at least 1,000 rounds of ammunition. As for the amount of this part of the money, I didn't even mention it, it was treated as a bonus. If Tia, who was also busy making ammunition in the nearby alchemy workshop, hadn't heard the news and came to stop him from continuing to act cool, he would have dared to give them hundreds more rounds of armor-piercing bullets. After seeing off the two women and the convoy, Lugger sighed in boredom. He originally planned to take the opportunity of testing the gun to go to the front line and drive a tank to bully the monsters behind him, but now that the gun has been handed over to the MP5 girls, he no longer has any excuse to go out and hang out. Seeing his bored look, Tia, who had been busy making bombs in the alchemy workshop for several days under the pretext of preparation, her eyebrows stood up in anger. Brother Lu, you are very free, aren't you? In that case, why not build some chariots for the little ones? Now that even light infantry like Rog has been mechanized by your armor, why do you have to take care of the boys at home who are at best field engineers? I've seen the materials you have left. There are still 2 chassis of tank number 5, which is not much, but there are at least 20 chassis of tank number 3 and no 4. With so many things, 1 is enough for each of you. You should prepare 1 for each of the 3 of them, so you should make at least 5, right? After being rebuked by Tia, Ruger's forehead, which was originally feeling bored, immediately began to sweat. Good guy, he almost forgot that he had also given Tia access to the logistics space, and in the shelter, he had always opened the logistics space in the corridor between the repair shop and the alchemy workshop. As a result, his family assets were actually seen by Tia. Fortunately, Tia was just like the original self, only knowledge in the field of mechanics, and not very interested in the biochemical laboratory next door. Otherwise, she would probably have to ask where the nuclear waste had gone before. Even if Ruger told the truth and said that he was conducting an experiment that was extremely dangerous but also had high returns, she might not believe it. Wait. This idea doesn't seem right. Why does it feel like the husband is hiding private money behind his wife's back? No, the relationship in my family can't be so typical in the future. Ruger shook his head vigorously and threw away those nonsense. He was about to tell Tia why he didn't make the tank, but he didn't expect Tia to walk into the alchemy workshop before he could say anything. I'll go back and continue to make ammunition for you. You have planned your own affairs. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 232. Hiss. The little girl retreated to advance. Seeing this, Ruger smiled bitterly again, knowing that no matter how reluctant he was, he had to build 1 or 2 to deal with it. There was no way. Tia's words not only showed that she was working non-stop to help Ruger, but also expressed her current busy situation. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow circled M. Others are so busy for themselves, who would dare to say that I am bored and want to go out for a walk? Just do it, anyway, the technology is ready. Put the chassis in the raw material pool into the bunker car shop, and then follow the idea of the previous magic modification of the number 5 tank, the small Leopard, to convert the medium tank of the number 4 tank into a tracked assault gun. New tank, it's done. Of course, Ruger will not build a turretless assault gun like the real number 4 assault gun. His plan is more like replacing the chassis of a modern wheeled assault gun with a tracked one. It is not an exaggeration to call it a modern light tank. The tonnage of modern light tanks is similar to that of medium tanks in World War II, which can be regarded as a witness to the development of the times. Modern assault guns have basically been replaced with wheels, mainly for rapid response and rapid deployment. But the reason why wheels are fast is that they rely on the developed road transportation network of modern countries. However, given the road conditions in the Dark World, except for the brick-paved main road from the Blood Wasteland to the monastery used by Ruger's current transport convoy, those muddy roads are simply not suitable for wheels. Even this brick-paved road, because of its disrepair, has a low load-bearing capacity, so Ruger dare not let medium and heavy trucks with a load of 10 tons or more go on it. Tracked ones are still more suitable for modern conditions. Then why not just use infantry fighting vehicles or armored personnel carriers to modify it? Because these two types of vehicles are used for infantry. Armored personnel carriers are equivalent to buses that are specially used to carry fully armed soldiers. It can provide a certain degree of support and quickly transport infantry to the battlefield. But it is essentially a passenger car. It is enough to transport people, but it is absolutely not suitable for going to the battlefield. Infantry fighting vehicles are better. They can shuttle infantry on the battlefield, put down infantry when needed, and quickly load infantry back when they are in a fast maneuver. Equipped with a small caliber machine gun, it can provide certain anti-infantry and anti-armor support. In addition to being able to carry passengers, modern infantry fighting vehicles are really close to the ecological niche of infantry support vehicles such as the Stug 4 during World War II. However, Ruger's human guards do not need infantry fighting vehicles. To be precise, the individual combat capabilities of human guards are not enough to serve as qualified light infantry on the battlefield of the Dark World. To be a good light infantry, at least you have to be as strong as the Rogs. It's not that Ruger is self-deprecating. These boys at home have been trained in shooting and are indeed good at being gunners, but they are still a bit far from real warriors. Tia's description of them is more appropriate. Their current combat capability can only be regarded as a group of combat engineers. Well, this is the worst time that combat engineers have been criticized. Ruger's men are good at digging trenches and arranging firepower points, but they have never learned minesweeping and clearing because it is useless. As for building pontoon bridges and operating cranes, they have never heard of it. At most, they have learned blasting skills such as bombs from Tia recently. If they are provided with sufficient protection, they should be much more efficient than Sarah's rogues in blowing up the gate of the Blind Eye Monastery in Tamo Highlands. They can barely be regarded as combat engineer recruits. If they are given infantry fighting vehicles, 2 infantry fighting vehicles can put everyone down. But the combat effectiveness is not much different from having none. So Ruger still agrees with Tia's idea, which is to convert them into armored soldiers. Only 3 people are needed for a tracked assault gun. There are 16 full-time human guards, and it is just right to build 5 assault guns. The extra person can just help Ruger or Tia. At the same time, this opportunity is used to let the remaining 13 people engaged in daily production learn to drive. If the shelter can't be defended one day, everyone can still break through the siege by forming an armored convoy. As for the name, Ruger decided to call the new car the Little Bear Assault Gun Chariot, similar to the Grizzly assault gun, which also uses the chassis of the Panzer IV tank but is equipped with a 150 mm howitzer. After all, what he is going to install on the turret this time is not a short 88 gun, but a 75 mm 48 caliber tank gun. Yes, it is the main gun after the modification of the Panzer IV-G. The shells are also mainly grenades, supplemented by armor-piercing shells. There is no problem bullying the monsters on the ground. It is not inferior to the nightmare-level monsters. However, it is almost impossible to break through the outer armor of Ruger's core tank. The armor-piercing shell of that gun penetrates about 100 mm at a distance of 1000 meters, which poses a very low threat to Ruger himself. But if Ruger uses it himself, he can also achieve a higher penetration. Just change the bullets. However, he will not let others use the rod-piercing bullets used by these rifled guns. He has done this more than once or twice to modify the World War II chassis to the level of the end of the Cold War. So not long after the start of work, he made the main body of 5 bare assault guns. For engines, transmissions, turrets, steering motors, etc., you need to try the finished products to find the most cost-effective combination. After that, you need to solve the volume and position problems according to the actual layout, which also requires time. The time spent on this part cannot be replaced by the acceleration characteristics of the logistics space itself, and you can only work hard to grind it. He thought that he would spend time on this in the next 1 or 2 days, but he didn't expect that an accident would happen again. This time, the accident was that the number of people in the transport convoy returning from the Rogue front was wrong. However, it was not less, but more. When leaving, Rogue had a total of 6 people including the driver and the gunner. But when they came back, a total of 10 people got off the 3 cars. Among the 4 extra people, 3 were the 3 machine gunners who accompanied Minerva to the front line in the modified Ferdinand. And the last one was not the barbarian female warrior Minerva, but the Rogue commander, Blood Crow Sarah, who had just left Rogue not long ago. What's going on? As soon as he saw the expressions of the few people, Ruger knew that something was wrong. He didn't say hello and ask Sarah directly, could it be that Minerva was in trouble? As he said that, Ruger frowned and looked at the 3 people. Ruger was usually easy to talk to, but if someone violated military regulations and laws, he would be more frightening than Tia. Seeing him looking at him at this time, the 3 machine gunners who were ordered to pick up girls and went to the front line immediately stood up straight, not daring to breathe. Sarah also didn't want to waste words, and said directly, "Don't look at them, it has nothing to do with them. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 233. It's like this, Sarah explained, after the war ended yesterday, we were repairing in place. Google search to read. The Nephilim who came to support began to move freely. You should have heard from Isa and the others that the success of this battle was thanks to the armored combat vehicles you provided. They are quite powerful, so naturally they also attracted the attention of the Nephilim. They dare not take up the idea of my chariot, but Minerva's, in her own words, belongs entirely to her. When she was free to move around, some Nephilim who were familiar with her encouraged her to drive them to other monster lairs to try out the car. This is the right of the free Nephilim. I can't stop them, so I can only advise Minerva to come back as soon as possible. However, after she left last night, she still didn't show up when we gathered this morning. This kind of thing is common. After all, the Nephilim are not soldiers who follow orders and prohibitions. If they don't come back, we just won't incorporate them into the combat team. But later I discovered that 3 of your men were still in the camp, and they were also looking for Minerva. Minerva made an agreement with them to come back the next morning at the latest. So, something must have happened on Minerva's side. You mean, her Nephilim friends took advantage of her wealth and killed her for a chariot? Luge felt really bad now. Could it be that the reformed Ferdinand that he just made for her as a toy actually became her weapon of crime? I helped her change the vehicle into an infantry support vehicle in order to reduce the combat effectiveness of the vehicle in the eyes of others. It is understandable if someone robs a heavy tank destroyer or tank. After all, even if an ordinary person drives it, it has the potential to kill nightmare-level elite monsters. But an infantry support vehicle that is bigger in key points but has the firepower of 4 Rogs is just a big toy to Minerva. Any monster that thing can defeat, Minerva herself can defeat. Even those monsters that thing couldn't defeat could be defeated by Minerva herself by jumping out of the car. Killing people and grabbing treasures for this thing? Is this because those Nephilim are too ignorant of the weapons of the lost and are too weak-minded? Or did Lugger underestimate the greed of these people? Sarah couldn't help but smile bitterly when she saw that Ruger casually said killing people to seize treasures when they see wealth after listening to her words. As expected, you are naturally wary of the Nephilim. You are worthy of being a lost one. If we had been as vigilant as you at the beginning, there might be some room for recovery. What's going on? Luigi was stunned when he heard this, and realized that this matter was not simple. This is what happened. Sarah shook her head helplessly and continued to explain. When we discovered that Minerva missed the rendezvous time agreed with her teammates, we knew something must have happened to her. But similar things have happened before. A certain Nephilim accidentally obtained some powerful sword or other equipment, which greatly increased his strength. So his friends encouraged him to find stronger monsters and try the sword. In the end, it turned out that the equipment was not powerful enough. As a result, even this person and the people who encouraged him were killed in the hands of powerful monsters. Because of these things, we initially thought so. Then, allocate manpower to explore the nearby layers of more powerful monsters. As a result, traces of the chariot's tracks being crushed were actually found in a cave in the Tamo Highlands. Afterwards, I also led a task force to go in to investigate, and indeed saw traces of chariot battles there. But the monsters there are stronger than the ones we encountered last time we went to the Bloody Countess. Although Minerva and the others are indeed not weak, and they were 4 or 5 people acting together, judging from the traces of the battle, they were still suppressed and beaten by monsters. But that's when things got weird. They couldn't fight again and again. They didn't even think about retreating. Instead, they continued to charge deeper into the cave. We continued to chase in, but the monsters in the cave became stronger and stronger, and there were more and more. My elite team was actually unable to survive. If my people can't hold on, it's hard to imagine how they can survive. At this moment, one of my men suddenly reported that a certain Nephilim who was still breathing was found on a barbecue grill in a nearby monster camp. That person was one of the people who entered the cave with Minerva. After rescuing him, he told me that the rest of the people had been eaten by monsters before him, and that the chariot was also dismantled by monsters and ground into swords and weapons. Only half of the entire team is still alive. Hearing this, Lugger couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and snorted, "He's so lucky. The others, including their people and their cars, have no bones left, and there is no evidence of their death, but his body is not only intact, but he also has an extra breath. Is he very capable? Is he a paladin who can use holy light to heal himself?" Sarah smiled bitterly, "Although it's not true, it's almost the same. He is a druid. He knows the spell, blood-sucking vine. This is a variant of the spell, corpse vine. It can make up for its own lack of vitality by sucking the enemy's blood. He was very creative and found a way to send this magical plant into the stomach of a monster that was not very smart but had a good appetite. He said that he barely survived by letting the blood-sucking vines act as parasites in other people's stomachs. Is it so creative?" Ruger curled his lips again after hearing this. "This person has such a high IQ and is so flexible. It seems that he shouldn't have let himself fall into this situation in the first place. Where is this person now?" Ruger looked at Sarah and asked. Sarah smiled bitterly again after hearing this. The corners of her mouth twitched a few times before she whispered 2 words, "Run away." Run away? Ruger was even more surprised. After all, he is a wounded soldier. He only managed to survive half a breath with the help of life potions. "I can only let Roger and others take him back to the camp to rest," Sarah said helplessly. "After that, your convoy came back, and I had to arrange the unloading, so I didn't care about him. Until everything was arranged and your people were ready to come back, I wanted them and the other three to inform you of Minerva's experience, and then I went to find that person to ask more clearly. As a result, when I entered the ward area, I saw that the person I left to take care of him had fallen unconscious on the bed, and had been drugged. That druid was gone long ago. Why, Ruger frowned, this person took such a big risk and pretended to be half dead in the monster's lair. He didn't even play a full role, stayed to continue to confuse you, and acted like a complete survivor. Instead, he escaped so quickly. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 234. Is this his original plan? Or is there something that spurred him on? Ruger finally asked. When Sarah heard what he said, her mouth suddenly opened wide again. After waiting for a while, she murmured and sighed, You are really amazing. I still knew roughly what happened before she fell asleep from the person I left behind, and I vaguely guessed that this was what happened. I didn't expect you to think of it after only hearing 2 sentences. What is it? Luger asked immediately after hearing this. From what you said, something irritated him. What was it? This is my next plan, to directly attack the core cathedral of the monastery, attack plan. He wanted to tip off, so he ran away. Luge asked puzzledly, who would he tip off to? Could it be a monster? However, as soon as he said this, Luger immediately realized that the relationship between a force and monsters was quite unclear. Order of the Holy Knights. Order of the Holy Knights. Ruger's question actually synchronized with Sarah's statement. Sure enough, X2. There is a sync. But the meaning is very different. Ruger's sure enough means that the people causing trouble this time are indeed members of the Holy Knight Order. When the Holy Knight Order came to the second sanctuary to intercept Sarah, the two of them speculated that there was a high probability that there would be their spies on Rog's front line, but now they actually escaped. And Sarah's sure enough means that Ruger can indeed guess these things. So, do these guys know about the defeat of the Holy Knight Order? Ruger thought for a while and asked. Sarah nodded, although I strictly ordered the 4 little guys not to spread the matter quickly spread throughout the entire front line. Because some of the Free Nephilim who participated in that battle did not return to Rogtown, but came directly to the front line. They nominally turned from darkness to light to help, and from the beginning to the end they were only helping their adventure teammates, and did not join the cult. I can't do anything to them. But I also sent people to pay attention to them. They didn't get involved in this incident. Well, that's what it should be. Luger nodded. Even if they are also spies, they know that they will definitely be focused on in the past at this time, so they might as well stay calm. Anyway, they only need to be responsible for telling the spies who have been on the front line what is happening in the rear. Sarah originally wanted to say that these people should not be a big problem, and they should remove the people who monitor them in the future. But when she heard Lu Ji's words, good guy, she realized that this kind of thing could still be played like this. She couldn't help but marveled at it, and at the same time, she praised Lu Ji for a while. Luger didn't have much reaction to her words, he just focused on stringing together the known situations. Then let's sort it out, he thought. The spies of the Order placed on the front line learned that the Order had suffered a huge loss, and that it had been lost to the weapons of the lost. They have witnessed with their own eyes, Sarah, how effective the chariot in your hand is in dealing with monsters. So, they started to think about this thing. The best chariot to get was Minerva's Ferdinand. So they used their old friendship to trick her into fighting the powerful monsters in the monster's lair. As a result, a bunch of people disappeared there, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. But a spy was left behind, saying that they were all dead, and he also specially explained to you why the chariot was gone. It was said that it was dismantled by a monster and then ground into a weapon. Humph, this is to bully you for not understanding the technology of the lost. Even if the tank is completely dismantled, at least half of the parts will be left. Want to sharpen these things into simple weapons? There is no way. Seeing Sarah's expression of confusion, Luger also knew that she could not be blamed for this matter. She was not a professional, she just learned some usage from the bloody countess. But there was another thing she should have done. So Luger asked directly, what happened later, after you found out that the man ran away? Did you go back to the cave to check? I checked it out, Sarah said directly with an expression as if she really couldn't hide it from you. It's easier for me to go in alone, so I just checked there. Finally confirmed, that guy was indeed lying to me. That cave was dug out by someone at some point, and a secret passage was directly connected to another monster's lair in the dark wasteland. Those guys actually drove the chariot out from the other end. Judging from the traces, they returned directly to Rogue Town. Have you returned to Rogue Town? Rugger lifted his chin and rubbed it twice, speaking of which, maybe Minerva is still alive. I think so too, Sarah nodded. This happened because of me, and it happened under my nose. It's reasonable for me to come and help. However, I don't want other Rogues to be involved in the direct conflict with Rogue Town, so... Well, it should be Luge knew that she wanted to explain why she was the only one who came here instead of just leading the army to fight back, so he nodded quickly and interrupted. Sneaking into Rogue Town to rob people, it would be better if there are fewer people. After saying that, he arranged for the returning convoy members to continue the previous training, and at the same time, he also organized the 3 uneasy human soldiers who had lost their girlfriends and commanders into the training table. After figuring this out, he went to inform Tia, who was still fighting fiercely in the alchemy workshop. After taking her recent work results, Ruger did not agree to her request to go with him to rescue people, and asked her to stay and look after the house. Instead, he pulled out Anya, who was researching alchemy potion. Seeing his arrangement, Tia and Anya were both stunned, and soon nodded in relief. Although Tia's expression was a little complicated, it eased quickly. Anya's expression was much more troublesome, with an expression of obeying orders but sad. Seeing the two people's expressions that were similar but different in degree, Ruger knew that they had thought wrong, and couldn't help but said angrily, "Hey, what are the expressions on your faces? What, do you think I don't trust Anya to stay and look after the house? How is it possible? She is my dearest granddaughter." As he said this, he stroked their heads half jokingly and half angrily, until their hairstyles became messy like bird nests. Let Tia stay because she can maximize the remaining combat power in the shelter. This time, both boxers are left to you. In addition, I will leave you some more heavy machine guns to prevent someone from taking the opportunity to come and cause trouble. After listening to his explanation, the two women felt a little embarrassed. They turned their heads and looked at each other. They found that the hair of the old enemy was so thick that it could hatch eggs, but they laughed out loud twice. However, seeing that the other party was laughing like them, the two women instantly realized that the current situation of their hair might be as bad as the other party's. They quickly turned their heads and took out the combs hidden from somewhere to comb them. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 235. At first, Ruger was just watching the fun. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow dot. Until he saw the two of them take out combs and fix their hairstyles with great skill, he was completely dumbfounded. He thought to himself, no wonder they could fix their hairstyles in the blink of an eye no matter how fierce the battle was. So they are more skilled in taking out combs and using combs than in taking out weapons and using weapons? He was still sighing, while the two women had already arranged their hairstyles skillfully. After turning back to look at him, they looked at each other and rushed towards Ruger. "Wow, no, what are you going to do? This is retaliation, help, help." A few minutes later, Sarah, who was waiting in the front yard of the repair shop, saw Anya following a man with disheveled hair who looked like a beggar, coming from the alchemy workshop next door. "It's you." Ruger. You, what's wrong with you? Sarah asked in surprise after recognizing him. Nothing, I'm bored, change my look. Someone even pretended to be relaxed and posed like a sharp guy. However, this ancient joke was almost not mentioned in his time, and no one in this world knows it. Sarah just felt that the contrast between his chicken coop-like hairstyle and his pretended deep eyes was too strong, and it was inexplicably funny, but she didn't dare to laugh. After all, she said she was helping to save people this time, which had some meaning of asking for forgiveness and mending the fold after the sheep had been lost. If she still laughed at the victim's dress at this time, wouldn't it be too ignorant? However, when she saw Anya behind him actually hiding her head and laughing, Sarah secretly put her mind at ease. Probably guessed that this family was playing some prank again. Just looking at the once cold ice mage cutting there, Sarah was still quite emotional, and couldn't help sighing. In my memory, Anya seems to have never smiled like this. After she followed you, she really became much more cheerful. This sentence made Anya stunned. Thinking carefully, it seems that after coming here, it seems that she is much more relaxed and happy than before. Even if the workload here is much higher than before. Maybe, the little girl turned her head to look at Ruger, thinking in her heart, is this the feeling of a real home? Hearing this, Ruger directly pulled Anya behind him into his arms and patted her head again. But this time, because he was in front of outsiders, he didn't deliberately mess up her hair. That's right, this is my precious granddaughter. Always saying Anya is their granddaughter, but whether it is Tia or Sarah, they feel that the relationship between the two is more and more like siblings. The kind of elder brother is like a father. Maybe this is, the younger father is like a brother? Sarah thought that it would be better for her not to delve too deeply into the relationship between the two families, so as not to burn her brain and delay the work. Then, shall we set off? She interrupted while the two were playing. Well, that's fine. How do we go? Drive your wheeled tank? Or any wheeled armored vehicle? Sarah asked again. Wheeled tank? Oh, you mean the Boxer assault gun? Ruger shook his head hurriedly. Although the road from here to Rogue Town is not far, the road conditions are not good. In the final analysis, after the apocalypse, the Rogue camp moved to the newly built Rogue Town, which was not on the main road leading to the Blind Eye Monastery before the apocalypse. Ruger originally wanted to drive a Leopard 2 out, but he gave up decisively after glancing at Sarah. It would be bad if she forced him to requisition him with excuses like the overall situation is important. In fact, she probably wouldn't ask for it. Even if she asked, he would definitely not give it. But, it would be meaningless to make things awkward because of this. It is better to reduce the probability of this happening in advance. Thinking of this, Ruger simply walked to the square and shooting range in front of the machine gun firepower point of the shelter, held up his hands to the sky, and played a round of jumping the gods kung fu that made people feel inexplicably powerful. Finally, he pressed down both hands together and drew a big circle in the open space in front. At the same time, he threw the flash powder secretly held in his palm towards there. After a strong white flash, a track tank that was one size smaller than the Leopard 2 appeared out of thin air in the open space. It was a semi-finished bear assault gun released from the logistics space by Ruger using full metal alchemy. What is this? Sarah asked, looking at this silly-looking tank that was a circle smaller than the Leopard 2, but seemed more sturdy. The chassis of the Type 4 tank is about 88 meters long, 88 meters wide, and about 82 meters high. This is the size of the chassis only, not the turret. The Leopard 2 tank is about 5 meters long, 54 meters wide, and 48 meters high. This is the size including the turret but not the length of the barrel. It looks bigger in all aspects. But the Panzer IV is just the chassis. With the assault gun turret, its height immediately soars to about 5 meters. It is not much shorter than the original Panzer IV-H tank. It is slightly taller than the Leopard 2. When compared together, The two tanks are of the same height, but the Leopard 2 is long and wide, which makes it more streamlined and slimmer in comparison. The Bear assault gun, which was modified from the Panzer IV, looks much more stupid, and it really lives up to the name Bear. Bear assault gun. Sarah heard the name from Ruger, and her expression was half curious and half disgusted. Seeing her expression, Ruger nodded secretly, thinking that it was safe now. He knew that Sarah, who didn't even like the modified little Leopard, would not like this silly little bear cannon. As for her doubts, it was probably because of the name. Sure enough, Sarah continued to ask, why is it called an assault cannon? Isn't it a tank? How can I put it? Its armor is too thin, and it doesn't deserve to be called a tank. Ruger smiled and climbed into the cockpit. I just made this thing and haven't adjusted it yet. It will inevitably be repaired on the way. Be prepared. As he said, he pointed to the turret hatch behind him to Sarah and Anya, and motioned for them to sit on it. This vehicle has a different position from the Leopard 2. The gunner is on the left side of the turret, and the commander is on the right side. The commander is responsible for the machine gun on the top of the hatch. I suggest that you be the commander, Sarah. If you need to use the top machine gun, you can wear the iron armor to hold on for a while. Sarah and Anya looked at each other and saw the suspicion and worry in each other's eyes. I always feel that I seem to be used as a guinea pig for experiments by someone. If Ruger heard this, he would hesitate at most, but he would definitely nod and say that they were right. In the final analysis, it was Sarah who came at the wrong time. Give him another 2 or 3 hours, and he would probably be able to debug this little bear assault gun number 1. But now we can only watch it on the road. As for modern assault guns, there are often nicknames of light tanks or wheeled tanks. After all, its main gun is a tank gun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 236. In addition, its ammunition includes both fin-stabilized armor-piercing discarding sabot shells and high-explosive grenades. Google search reading. If the chassis is no longer wheeled but tracked, the difference between the assault gun and the tank in appearance will be even smaller. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. However, it is still very different from a real tank. The biggest difference nowadays is in protection. Tanks are offensive weapons, and their core mission is to attack from the front. Therefore, the forward armor of the vehicle body must be piled thick enough to survive for a longer period of time under the main gun of the opponent's tank. Even a difference of one shot is the difference between life and death. In this way, putting the engine directly behind the armor will cause many problems. Layout problems, damage problems, etc. Therefore, the engines of modern tanks are mostly on the rear side of the vehicle body. But the assault gun is different. Most modern assault gun chassis are transplanted from other tracked infantry fighting vehicles or wheeled armored vehicles. There is no reinforced front armor, and the engine is still arranged on the front side of the vehicle body. Thin skin and big filling, easy to die in the gun, which is probably the biggest difference between assault guns and tanks. However, the foundation of Ruger's Little Bear assault gun is actually not bad. After all, it is modified from the chassis of the Panzer IV assault gun. The Panzer IV itself is directly built on the H-type chassis of the Panzer IV tank. So its engine is naturally rear-mounted. Basically, as long as the front armor is piled up, and the 75mm 48 caliber tank gun that fools things is replaced with at least a 105mm rifled gun, it is not impossible to say that this is a modern light tank. However, as Ruger said, compared with the real modern main battle tank, the skin of this little bear is too thin now. The front is just over 100mm equivalent armor of average steel plate, 80 mm on the side, and only 50 mm on the rear. This is what Luger upgraded, and it is 20–30 mm stronger than the original Type 4 tank in all aspects. This kind of protection is only worthy of being called an assault gun. Starting from the second shelter, heading south, it won't take long to rush out of the forest. Originally, there would be a lot more monsters in the forest compared to the grassland with a wide view. However, since Luger moved to the second shelter, the monsters around here have become cannon fodder for some people to vent their anger on a daily basis. Even though the human guards don't need to go out for training and hunting recently, Luger has been out to make extra money. A few points are really a drop in the bucket for him who now has a 5-digit fortune, but he just likes to listen to the system's notification sound of the kill record every day. At least it is a stable income. And he specially comes out at night when the monsters are more active. As a result, in this forest where there were not many monsters, seeing a fallen demon now feels like seeing a panda, which is so rare. The little bear assault gun gave Luger a big surprise. I thought it would have frequent problems on the road because it had not been debugged. Unexpectedly, it was much tougher than Ruger thought. I don't know if it was named well, but it was like a naughty kid. It rushed out of the woods with the three of them. In addition, Ruger had killed most of the monsters in the woods in advance, so the three of them didn't even have a chance to shoot. It is said that there must be something wrong when things are abnormal. Ruger actually thought that he was not a particularly lucky person before. Otherwise, the sudden drop in income and the breakup with his girlfriend would not have hit him. However, considering that he actually traveled through time, and after traveling through time, he seemed to be in crisis, but in fact he was very stable, which made him have some different ideas about his luck. I thought, could it be that the unlucky mother opened the door for the unlucky after the unlucky got home, the unlucky took a bath and changed into coarse cloth clothes, and became the cloth unlucky? But if you really want to say that his luck has become particularly good, there were so many good things for him to draw in the first lottery, but he didn't even draw a power that could make him live 100 years or immortal, let alone things like immortal cultivation methods that could live as long as the heaven and earth. But then again, the Los Santos mechanic was thought to be just a car mechanic, but it turned out that he was actually an armorer. And he was a very unconventional armorer who could make all kinds of strange weapons and equipment. This really can't be said to be bad luck. In the end, he roughly came to a conclusion that if a person's luck is marked with numbers from 0 to 100, the higher the number, the better the luck, then his luck before crossing was probably between 42 and 52. It's not that his luck is particularly bad, but he rarely gets lucky. When he came to the Dark World, his luck was probably between 48 and 68, which is above average, with a low lower limit and a high upper limit. If that's the case, then it's a bit unreasonable that he was lucky enough to let the bear assault gun go for a kilometer or two without any major problems. This bear assault gun was made by him using the chassis of the Panzer IV, the Cockerill 105mm assault turret, and the three sets of technology of the Puma infantry fighting vehicle. The three sets of technology are mostly from the same zoo, the only one that is not to mention the ancient historical context, at least there is mutual cooperation. But even so, the gap between them in terms of time and technical route is still quite large. Under normal circumstances, the probability of not having any problems with such a random accumulation should be so low that it is unbearable to watch. It is definitely an extremely low probability event. However, such a low probability event actually happened. And it happened to a person whose luck was not particularly good. How could Ruger feel at ease? So even though nothing happened to the car during his journey, he still had a lot of complaints in his heart. Until he realized one thing. This car was built from beginning to end by him in the logistics space. He thought that the logistics space was just a large portable space, providing himself with a safe place in the turbulent world of the end of the world, where he could give full play to his Los Santos mechanic ability. So after he had his own territory, the second shelter, he simply built a repair shop there. Since then, a considerable part of the tank equipment has been completed in the shelter repair shop. But now thinking back, it seems that only the tanks completed in the repair shop will have various minor problems. All the tanks built in the logistics space bunker repair shop, from the original modified Weasel Honey Badger to the Leopard 2, and a considerable number of armored vehicles, have no problems. However, most of those tanks were restored according to the original design drawings, and Ruger himself believed that as long as the parts were stacked according to the original design, there should be no problems. In contrast, a considerable part of the work on the modified Ferdinand was carried out outside the logistics space, and the modified Leopard was completely completed in the repair shop. They should have problems, and they have had many problems, which is also natural in Ruger's view. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 237. So things have come to this point. A machine that has no mature drawings and is made on a whim, but there are no problems at all. And its biggest difference is that it was completely made in the logistic space bunker. What does this mean? There may be other explanations, but Ruger now thinks the most likely one is, there is a bonus for making equipment in the logistic space. There are bonuses like increasing the success rate and perfection rate. When he thought of this, he was really itchy and wanted to go back to the space to do an experiment immediately. It happened that he made 5 of these little bear assault guns in one go. But except for number 1, which he thought had reached 80% completion, the other 4 had a completion rate of only 50% at most. In addition to the turret and chassis, many parts of the 4, including the engine and even the transmission system, have not been made. If this one is put in the logistic space, and it is made exactly the same as the production method of number 1 tank, can't it be compared? If the second car built in this way also has no problems, then it can only be said that he is really lucky. He can easily collect a set of design drawings, which is better than the one made by professional engineers and professional teams after working hard for several years. But if all the problems that should have occurred in the second car have occurred, although he cannot be 100% sure, the probability of his guess must be at least 90%. In other words, making things in the logistics space has a success rate, completion rate, and other bonuses. If this matter is really proven, then his strategy for weapon production in the future will have to be changed. Of course, even if this matter can be confirmed, he will not really make everything in the logistics space. This thing is like cheating. If you cheat for too long, your basic ability will degenerate. He didn't notice it before, but now that he has become a mechanic and has learned various mechanic-related skills, he finds that he quite enjoys the feeling of picking up a hammer and a wrench. There is the spur of failure, and there is the joy of success. Otherwise, if you always use external plug-ins, being invincible will be meaningless. However, in the production of some key things, such as the production of the strongest combat force on his hand, such as the Leopard 2A6, it is reasonable to use the bonus of logistics space as a bottom line. Thinking of this, his speed gradually increased. Relying on the strong passability of the track and the liquid pneumatic suspension device he got from the Puma infantry fighting vehicle, the Bear assault cannon ran all the way on the grass of the Blood Wasteland. The maximum speed almost reached 60 km per hour. This speed is nothing for a road car, but for a tracked vehicle weighing dozens of tons traveling on a non-road, it is really like flying. The second shelter is not far from Rogue Town. When Ruger and Tia brought nearly 30 humans to open up the wasteland, they only walked for 2 hours. In other words, it is a distance of about 10 kilometers. This distance, running at a speed of nearly 60 kilometers per hour, just takes about 10 minutes. While Ruger was still planning how to test the logistics space, Sarah, who was in the back seat, had already shouted, "Ruger, stop the car. I see Rogue Town." According to Sarah's plan, as the commander of Rogue, she would go there first and try to contact other Rogue guards stationed at the gate of Rogue Town. In this way, she could also learn about the situation in the town from them. If everything goes well, she could even ask them to help rescue people. In addition to the personal guards of several adult Akara, there are 20 to 30 rogues in the town. As long as they are willing to help, given the current situation of the Paladin Order, if Minerva is still alive, it should not be a problem to rescue her. Sarah concluded. That's good. Ruger was trying to find time to verify his previous guess. Now that Sarah took the initiative to leave the chariot and act alone, it just created an opportunity for him to return to the logistics space, which he naturally wanted. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt that his performance seemed too eager, and hurriedly added, "But you must be careful. The last time the Paladin Order came to me with a large force, it was to capture you and bring you back to Rogue Town. In the end, they came out in full force and failed to get you. Now you come to me on your own. If they really get the chance, I'm afraid they will be happy to death in their dreams." "What are you talking about? Can you say something good about me?" "Don't curse me," Sarah laughed and scolded, but turned around and said, "Don't worry, I'm wearing rogue leather armor and a long ponytail now, just like an ordinary rogue. The people of the Order can't recognize me." As she said that, Sarah straightened her clothes and jumped out of the turret cabin. Ruger was somewhat relieved when he heard her say that. But after thinking about it, he still climbed out of the cockpit and handed Sarah a short and thick pistol-like thing. "What is this?" Sarah took the gun and asked curiously after fiddling with it. "This is a signal gun. When you use it, shoot it toward the sky and it will fire a red signal flare," Ruger explained. "If the situation changes or you encounter danger, you can fire it out. We will come to support you immediately." As he spoke, Lugger patted the outer armor of the tank at hand. "Don't look at how naive this guy is, he can still blow away a guy of Austin's level with one shot." "Okay, I understand." Sarah carefully put away the flare gun after hearing this, and nodded vigorously with Lugger. She took out a wooden longbow from her pocket, strung the bow lightly, took out a pot of arrows and carried them on her back, then dressed up like an ordinary rogue warrior and headed towards Rogue Town. Seeing that she didn't want to take the main road after putting on a disguise, and still planned to sneak past, Lugger finally breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and jumped back into the cockpit. After saying hello to Anya, he drove the car to a nearby bush and hid it, and started messing around in the cockpit. He had wanted to conduct a test on the logistics space before on the road, and now that he had the opportunity, of course he would not let it go. But as it is now, it is impossible to conduct experiments with the number 2 to number 5 Little Bear assault guns. There is not enough space and it is easy to attract attention. Fortunately, there are many replaceable things for him. It's just a test, there are not many things he can build. For example, let's take two guns that are relatively easy to damage. You can use it to pull any early version of Dayan's L85, the first modified version of Dayan's L85, or the second modified version of the larger L85. If we want to say that the world's best military standard assault rifle is the best, then many big manufacturers have to jump in and compete for it. But when it comes to the worst military standard assault rifle in the world, I'm afraid no one will compete with Dayan's L85 series. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 238. How bad was this early model of the gun? It was ridiculed as the bolt-action rifle with the largest magazine capacity in the world. What is a bolt-action rifle? It is an old-fashioned rifle like the Mauser 98 rifle, which relies on directly pulling and pushing the bolt to manually load the ammunition and extract the shell. Why did a rifle developed in the 1980s and positioned as an assault rifle actually get the name of a bolt-action rifle? Because it has a high failure rate and always jams. After one round of ammunition is fired, the next round of ammunition cannot be automatically loaded by the bolt, and it must be manually loaded and cleared by pulling the bolt handle. As a result, an assault rifle looks like a bolt-action rifle. This gun was originally a bullpup version of the AR-18, but due to a series of reasons, the research and development team could not be fixed and always gave up halfway. The result is like a premature fetus with poor development, with frequent failures. By the time it was barely completed and mass production was issued, it was already the first version of the modification. However, the actual effect on the battlefield was so bad that the soldiers of the country wanted to express their condolences to the mothers of the senior military officials of the country, and the condolences were very pornographic and violent. Later, because of the bad reputation, even the official allies did not give Dayan any face, and even wanted to remove this gun from the official list, meaning that this gun was not worthy of being our NATO standard weapon. Dayan finally made up his mind to improve it. So, they handed the improvement work of this gun to HK. Yes, it is the company that uses the most Ruger light weapons, the mother of the G3 series and HK416 series. But even for a company as strong as HK in the field of light weapons, they did not have an easy job. There is no way, the problem of this gun is not 1 or 2, not even 3 or 4. When they changed them one by one, even HK technicians almost expressed their condolences to Dayan bureaucrats like Dayan soldiers. HK technicians worked hard and spent at least 5 years to finally complete the second modification. The problem was solved, but at this time Dayan cooperated with the son's father to heal the wounds of the 911 incident. In the mountainous areas of Central Asia, this second modification exposed a lot of problems. However, at this point, all the problems that can be exposed have been exposed. It is only a matter of time to improve them bit by bit. In general, the original version and the first modification are absolutely useless. The second modification can be used as long as the precautions are taken. The later modification is at the same level as other assault rifles that are more than 10 years or even decades earlier. The official name is this gun is no longer inferior to anyone and is the pride of Dayan. Okay, if they say so, then so be it. Ruger would not even look at this kind of gun, let alone use it. But things in the world are so wonderful. It seems that every seemingly useless thing can play a huge role as long as it is used in the right place. This gun is so useless that using it as a gun is simply a joke with the lives of soldiers. But this gun is so useless that it is perfect to use it to test whether the logistics space has a success rate bonus or something. Soon, Ruger bought the most classic and representative first modification drawings of this thing from the gun vending machine. However, he realized at this time that he had no equipment at hand, and the parts had to be made quickly by the ability of the logistics space. But in this way, if the logistics space really has a bonus on the success rate, if the parts are perfect, the gun assembled with them is unlikely to have problems. What's the point of testing this? However, after thinking about it, he felt that he should give Dayan a chance. Anyway, he bought it, why not try it? Give Dayan a chance, Dayan might give him a surprise. With the mentality of I'm here and I bought it, he began to use telekinesis to control the various equipment in the logistics space to quickly process parts according to the drawings. Speaking of which, Ruger's telekinesis ability has little opportunity to show on the battlefield, but it has been used more and more frequently in mechanical processing recently. He can move objects and operate equipment at will in the logistics space, and the consumption is almost negligible. That's fine. Even in the repair shop, he can use this trick to summon a wrench or something. It's so useful. What? How can he use telekinesis in the car repair shop of the second shelter without magic? Isn't this the core ability of the Nephilim assassin profession? How can it be used without the magic atmosphere? This is the biggest secret of Luger's telekinesis power. His ability does not rely on magic, and the energy consumed is his own physical and mental strength. By the way, Tia can also use this ability in the shelter, but compared with Luger, it is not as refined and still takes the route of strong brick flying. Luger can suck a wrench into his hand with a wave of his hand. Tia waved her hand, and the wrench directly crashed through the wall and flew out. It can only be said that when this ability is on Tia, it is still a serious combat ability. When it is on Lugger, it becomes an auxiliary ability. He can only comfort himself by saying who made his career positioning a mechanic. But then again, this thing is really useful. Especially in the logistics space, he felt like the god of the logistics space. It was not just a matter of words, but everything moved as soon as his mind was focused. The 150-plus parts of the L-85 were all made in a short time under the dual effects of his logistics space and telekinesis. Moreover, there were 2 sets. There was no need to wait, he picked out a set and assembled it quickly in the logistics space, and then flew it to the shooting range for testing under remote control. He emptied a 30-round magazine, and nothing happened. It was really perfect. So Ruger took the second batch of parts to the cockpit in batches and assembled them manually bit by bit. He also installed a 30-round magazine, and prepared to climb out of the cockpit for testing. However, before he climbed out, he heard a snap, and the magazine loosened and fell by itself. Is this a possibility? Ruger waved his hand, and simply used telekinesis to lift the magazine up and flew outside with him. He assembled the rifle again, found a place where the wind was strong and the trees were rustling, and fired a shot to try. He heard a click. It really jammed. Ruger checked it and found that the magazine had just been dropped, and the spring and the ejector plate in the magazine were misaligned. It seems that the experiment is successful? No, the evidence seems not enough. Ruger hurriedly took out another L-85 made in the logistics space to try it out. Well, how perfect it is in the space, it is still perfect outside. He then took the perfect version of the magazine and installed it on the normal version to try. Well, a few rounds were successfully fired. But the 4th round was jammed again. Pull the bolt handle to clear the problem, shoot again, jammed again. Pull again and shoot again, still jammed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-chi-ji. Chapter 239. Ruger's forehead was sweating, thinking that this thing was indeed the shame of Dayan. It was simply anti-human. He pulled the bolt handle to clear the obstacle, but the bolt handle broke. The bolt handle broke. Okay, that's it, there's no need to waste time, the truth is already obvious. The logistics space really has a bonus. And the bonus effect is not low. It can make this shame that can be complained about by the whole world for decades so perfect. This logistics space is simply a mechanical manufacturing artifact. Ruger sighed and recycled the 2 L-85s into raw materials. Even if one of them is a perfect version with a logistics space bonus, he doesn't want to use this thing. Why? There's no reason. He can't afford to lose face. However, while recycling, he accidentally looked at the system panel to see how much raw materials these 2 things can recycle. The result is very natural, super low. Almost as low as the knife made of broken iron in the hands of the fallen demon. For example, to make a knife like the one in the hands of the fallen demon, you need 10 units of raw materials. Under normal circumstances, if Ruger's knife is recycled, it can be turned into 8 units of raw materials. But if the knife of the fallen demon is recycled, only 1 unit can be recycled. There is no way, the quality is too poor. The 2 guns are almost the same. However, this is not the worst. Ruger also found that his points seemed to be a little less. He didn't pay much attention to the number of his points. But before making the 2 guns, the number of points was just a strange number like 12,888. As a result, it has now become 12,877. If the number is not too easy to recognize, he would not notice the change of 11 points. After checking the consumption record again, wow, it turned out to be the cost of the hidden ability of the logistics space. Well, now there is a system record endorsement. The logistics space really has a hidden ability to increase the perfection and completion of the creation. This ability still requires spending points. It was just a small problem that cost only 1 or 2 points, so he didn't notice it and didn't look at it. When time went on and there was more information in the system record, he missed the news. But this time, although the absolute number of points spent was not much, it was nothing to him. But you have to know that if you buy this gun directly from the vending machine, it only costs a dozen points. In order to change it from the normal version to the perfect version, the logistics space actually spent a full 11 points. What is this? The system also believes that if you want to improve this gun, it is basically equivalent to rebuilding a gun. This is really suitable. Just right. After confirming this, Ruger immediately thought of the Little Bear assault cannon and hurried to look through the previous consumption records. In the end, he found the points spent on changing it to the perfect version in the historical records. The total cost is 4 major items and 11 minor items, adding up to more than 300 points. Far more than L85. But even so, Ruger still breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the price of L85 itself is 12 points, but the modification cost 11 points. This is almost 100% of the secondary investment. Even if the Bear assault gun is calculated by World War II standards, the price is at least several thousand points higher. This only cost 300 plus, which is 10% of the secondary investment at most. This shows that Ruger's design is much better than L85. Ruger verified an important guess and felt relieved. At the same time, he began to think about how to use and avoid this hidden attribute of logistics space in the future. Be able to retract and release freely. After all, it is too much to waste a little point to modify a rare gun like L8501. While he was thinking, Anya, who was in the gunner position, heard a series of gunshots and climbed out curiously to see what he was doing. Seeing that his 2 guns disappeared completely, Anya was about to ask why, but suddenly saw a red flash rising into the sky near Rogue Town not far away. Luigi. Look. It's Sarah's distress signal. What? Luigi was still immersed in the joy of his guess being successfully verified, and he hurriedly looked back after hearing the words. Sure enough, the red flare he had just given to Sarah was rising slowly near Rogue Town. Let's go, he didn't dare to delay when he saw this, and immediately jumped into the cockpit and ran towards the flare. Let's talk about Sarah. Less than half an hour ago, she had just separated from Luigi, and she held the wooden longbow in her hand and slowly moved towards Rogue Town, relying on the shade of the trees on both sides of the road. Even Luigi's second shelter, because of him, the plague god, the monsters in the surrounding forests are in short supply, not to mention Rogue Town located in the grassland wilderness. Even so, Sarah still shuttled through the shade of the trees with a cautious look. Patrolling around Rogue Town regularly and dealing with newborn monsters is one of the regular tasks of rogues. Sarah was now dressed like an ordinary rogue soldier, so it was a good idea to pretend to be a rogue returning from patrol. Just like that, she walked all the way to the gate of Rogue Town. Sarah was about to inform the rogue guarding the gate of the routine patrol code of the day according to the rogue regulations, but she found that the guarding the gate was no longer a rogue. Judging from the way those people were dressed, it was clearly a paladin with his servants. What's going on? While Sarah was in a daze, the gatekeeper paladin had already spotted her patrol warrior with orange ponytail and wearing rogue standard leather armor under the shade of the trees. After seeing her, the paladin was also stunned. According to the normal system arrangement of Rogue Town, there will be 5 to 10 rogue patrol warriors dispersed to various directions around Rogue Town for routine patrols. In order to facilitate scheduling, each rogue will be on the move for 3 days. After 3 days, the rogue will return to Rogue Town on his own, and after handing over to the next patrol warrior, he can enjoy a day off. Then, she will take over the next rogue who has just returned. Such an arrangement can ensure that there will be no sudden invasion of large numbers of monsters near Rogue Town, and it will not occupy too many rogue manpower. So in theory, Sarah's sudden appearance now is reasonable. So after a slight daze, the paladin immediately gave Sarah a knight's salute, showing a stiff smile with the paladin's arrogance and some friendliness. "Welcome back, rogue. First of all, please rest assured that everything is fine in Rogue Town. I will take over the guarding work here temporarily. It is arranged by Lord Akara." Although Sarah was completely worried, she still pretended to be relieved. This is the normal performance of a rogue warrior when hearing the words "it is arranged by Lord Akara." Sarah's acting skills are still good. The paladin was relieved when he saw her relieved expression. But his face immediately became solemn again, and he said in a deep voice, "In addition, there is an unfortunate news to inform you. Just last night, Lord Kasha, because of the recurrence of an old injury, her vitality has been exhausted, and she has returned to the holy light." Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 240. What? Kasha, dead. Searched Khan on Google. The disbelief on Sarah's face showed no trace of acting at all. Because this is her true emotion. Seeing the shock and sadness on her face, the paladin felt even more at ease, and continued to explain. Therefore, Master Akara specially recalled all Roger to attend Master Kasha's funeral, so we are temporarily responsible for guarding the city gate. So that's what happened? This reason is quite reasonable. Sarah nodded secretly. However, could this matter be such a coincidence? There was another murmur in her heart. The day before yesterday, the Holy Knight Order went to Lugger's sanctuary to catch him back here. Last night, the paladin's mole tricked Minerva into leaving the front line, took the opportunity to kidnap someone, took the car, and fled to Rogue Town. The result was also last night. Kasha, who was still in good health even though her old injury had not healed, actually died so quietly. There is something strange about this matter inside and out. In addition, Rogue Town has not experienced the death of veteran leaders. But even if Rogue needs to attend the funeral, the doormen and patrol soldiers will not stop working. Protecting the safety of Rogue Town is the responsibility of all Rogue. The deceased also abide by this responsibility. Therefore, continuing to perform their duties at their posts is the best and most traditional way for Roger to commemorate the deceased. Even though Kasha's status is different and he is the direct superior of Rogues, it is precisely because of this that Rogues should choose to stick to their posts. Moreover, Kasha is one of the top officials in Rogue Town who is most disgusted with the rise of the Holy Knight Order. As the first commander-in-chief of Rogue's troops, she valued Rogue's honor more than her own life. In her opinion, asking the paladins to take over the Rogues to complete their mission is simply a denial of the significance of the existence of Rogue's troops. Because of her death, the Rogues gave up their duty of guarding the city gate and let the paladin take over, just to attend her funeral. In Kasha's view, this kind of thing is not about paying tribute to her memory at all, but simply wanting her to die in peace. This kind of character of hers is very clear to everyone who has worked with her. Sarah, as the battlefield commander promoted by Kasha from the young captain, naturally knew better. But it is true that as Kasha gradually leaves the front line, not many Rogues in recent years know about this matter. And for the sake of internal unity in Rogue Town, the Rogues will not spread this matter widely. However, Akala, as Kasha's old superior, should at least be very clear about this matter. But what did the paladin just say? He said this was Akara's arrangement? This is even more unreasonable. Either he was lying, or Akara had other plans. It is absolutely impossible to say that she arranged Rogue's defense work in this way to pay homage to Kasha. With this thought in mind, Sarah rolled her eyes, and instead of entering the city gate to complete the handover at the urging of the paladin, she retreated without leaving a trace, and then asked him. "Has anyone informed Lady Sarah about Lord Kosh's death?" "Ah, this." The paladin guarding the door obviously didn't expect that Rog on the other side would ask such a question. In addition, he himself participated in the siege of the second sanctuary by the Holy Knight Order the day before yesterday, and witnessed the tragic scene. Now when he mentions the word Sarah, he still has some PTSD, his pupils shrink, his heart beats faster, his hands are clenched, and he is sweating. As a result, he almost got off guard by Rog's not too outrageous question. Seeing his strong reaction, Sarah felt that this must be a scam. She raised her legs and took a few steps back. She continued, "If no one has gone yet, then I'll go there. At present, the situation in Rog Town is unclear, and there is no way to connect with Rog who is staying in the town. In addition, such a strange thing happened again. Sarah feels that it is better to retreat temporarily and discuss with Luodu for a long-term plan." The paladin opposite saw her take 2 steps back and was about to turn around and leave. He didn't know what he thought of and shuddered. Instead, he quickly recovered from his PTSD state. As soon as he recovered, he immediately waved to Sarah, "Don't worry, someone has already gone." After Lord Kasha passed away last night, Lord Akara sent his personal guards to the front line to inform Lord Shah and Sarah. If nothing else, they should be on their way back now. There is no need for you to make another trip. Why not go back to town early to recuperate so that you can attend Lord Kasha's condolence ceremony? Sarah didn't pay attention to the fact that when this guy mentioned her name, she almost couldn't catch her breath again. In her heart, she directly labeled this guy's words as fake. This man is lying. Even if it was technically believed that he was not lying and actually believed what he said, those words themselves were false as far as Sarah was concerned. If it was true that Akara's personal guards went to the front line to inform him last night, Sarah wouldn't know about it now. Although Akara's bodyguards are also Rog, they are all strong men carefully selected from senior Rog. Coupled with Akela's guidance, each of them is just as strong as the real Amazon female warrior Nephilim. Amazon female warriors are almost the strongest in all power systems, and are on par with assassins. With this speed and strength, it takes less than 5 or 6 hours to get from Rogue Town to Tamo Highlands and even the gate of the monastery. From last night to the time when Sarah set off with Ruger's supply convoy, there was plenty of time for Akara's guards to find her. But no. Not only did no one come to tell her about this, but she also did not find any traces of other rogues going to the front line along the way. What's more, judging from the panic-stricken and forced calmness of the paladin in front of him, he didn't believe his lies at all. This is a complete lie. Then, the next question becomes, why did he lie? Is it because he pretended to leave? Or because he said he was going to inform Sarah? Well, this question can be tried. Is that so? Sarah nodded as if she believed him, and raised her legs to walk towards the city gate. However, just as her slender legs were lifted, the paladin who was staring at her began to breathe rapidly. She swayed for a moment and then retracted her legs. "Oh, I remember, I came back in a hurry today, and I haven't dealt with the campsite last night. I was going to ask the person who took over my shift to go and deal with it, since she will need it when she camps tonight. But from what you said, there should be no one to take over my shift, right? In that case, I'd better go back and deal with it, so as not to cause some unnecessary trouble and endanger the safety of the town."